Hi, Jason. Welcome to the podcast Everyday Metallurgy.
Awesome. Great to be here. I've been really excited to talk to you. Been looking forward to it ever since you messaged me a few weeks or so ago.
Yeah, Jason, you inspired me, and you brought me back to my old days when I was studying. I had a professor at the Danish Technical University that was some call him crazy, some call him visionary. I would call him the most passionate man in the world I've ever met. Uh, his name was Vagn Buchwald. He in the 60s, he took a few years off and went to Greenland because he wanted to find a meteor that he was sure had landed up there, and he found it. Uh, he told the story when he was my professor, and it was mind blowing. And he has been working all his life looking into mainly iron-based meteors. This year he passed away in April. So I would like to dedicate this episode to Buchwald, my old professor, and to give some insight in what he found. Uh, on this picture, he's standing next to a piece of the stone he found. It was an iron-based meteor, around 20 ton, and it is loaded here on an iron sledge. And this was the sledge they used to move it from where they found it to the coastal side to bring it home from Greenland to Denmark. Today, you can find this stone on the Geological Museum in Copenhagen. So if you ever go to Copenhagen, this is a must-see place.
Yeah, that would probably be the main attraction. Not to make anything else seem unimportant, but for someone
Yeah,
like me interested in pieces of metal, that'd
yeah,
be really cool to see.
yeah. Because Buchwald, he was investigating in the microstructure that occurred in these meteors. And some of them, they have a cooling pattern. When they are formed, uh, it's typically a mix of iron, nickel, and the cooling is extremely slow. So therefore, they form a solidification pattern called Widmanstätten structure. And a lot of people say that is impossible to replicate because it takes millions of years to solidify and make these structures. Uh, but then you showed that you are trying to play around with these structures. Uh, you are taking some other alloy types, but you design your composition and then you control the cooling rate to reproduce the pattern. And when I saw that, there were no doubt I wanted to make an episode with you and combining it with this tribute to Bookwell and the Meteor Society. So, Jason, I cannot put you higher now. You are the top level of all my guests on the podcast. But who are you, and how did you end here?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Peter, for the great intro. And I just want to make it clear that I am very young in the field. I just graduated with my bachelor's in May, just in material science and engineering. And I've always had a very large focus or very large passion for metals and metallurgy.
Hmm.
So right now, I would define myself as an enthusiast with a bachelor's degree, not a professional in the field. And so as we go through the podcast, I just want to make that clear. Nothing I say is uh, law, you know. But yeah.
Hmm.
Um, one of my main hobbies since graduating, since I've always been interested in metal, is making really pretty microstructures
Hmm.
in metals upon solidification, especially macro structures, like turning
Yeah.
microstructures into macro structures.
Hmm.
I don't see much of that anywhere else, and I think it's really cool. And that stems from like a really big interest in, like Damascus steel, stuff
Hmm.
like that. I
Yeah.
don't have a forge. I have a furnace. I don't have a forge or any of the blacksmithing um,
Mm.
you know, skills. But I think that's really cool. And so getting like really large microstructures from materials upon solidification is something I thought was always cool. I've also thought that meteorites are always cool,
Yeah.
specifically the Widmanstätten pattern that you see within them.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so, like I said, one of the hallmarks of Widmanstätten is that everyone says you can't make this on Earth. You need
Mm.
a degree per million year cooling rate to achieve
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the mechanisms behind that make sense, but um, I want to try. I want to try making it. And so, one of the big focuses that I've been doing the last few months is trying to sort of coerce that structure out of various material systems, not
Mm.
necessarily iron nickel, because I
Mm.
can't melt iron and nickel, but um, yeah, to try to
Yes.
achieve that structure in on more human timescales rather than geological timescales,
Yeah.
while also playing around with all the other beautiful microstructures you can get upon solidification.
Mm.
And then just looking at those microstructures and like the whole processing microstructure relationship
Mm.
is something that I find extremely interesting in general,
Yeah.
not even just for hobbies, but in general as well. And so, having a means to explore that is really fulfilling for me.
Mm. Yeah. Uh, and just to sum up on your profile, you say you are not that skilled, you say you're not that old, but you have the passion. And as I said, Buchwald was the most passionate person I have ever met. Uh, Hopefully, you can become number two, uh, because that's the skill I admire most in people. Uh, so, with this passion, Jason, you are absolutely one of my priority guests here.
Well, thank you, Peter. I really appreciate that.
But if we look into these meteors,
Hmm.
how are these structures formed? How do they look? And how
Yes,
are they formed? Can you tell a little about that?
absolutely. So I first want to show you guys just a picture of a meteorite. Um, and here you go. This is my very small, can everyone see?
Yes, it
Can you
looks
see?
nice.
Yes, okay, perfect. This is my very small chunk of meteorite because the stuff
Hmm.
is expensive. And so
Yeah.
I have a very small piece. And this is a real meteorite,
Hmm.
converse to the artificial Widmanstätten
Yeah.
I've been
So
making.
this is an iron nickel based material.
Correct. Yes, yes.
Mm.
And so these Widmanstätten patterns only form in meteorites that have a very specific composition of iron and nickel. And
Mm.
so I first want to try to discuss that pattern and how it forms verbally, and then we can move on to a phase diagram. So what you see here
Mm.
are two primary phases. You have taenite and kamacite. I'm not sure, can you see my mouse so I can point at things?
Yes, yes, it
Perfect.
looks fine.
So yes, uh, taenite is this background phase, and kamacite is this darker rod-shaped
Mm.
phase,
Yeah.
right? And so taenite is, I mean, we could define a phase. And so a phase in the material science sense is that um, a two or more materials that have a unique crystal structure and or stoichiometry. We agree upon that definition. And
Hmm.
so it's different. It's there's a little more nuance to phases in material science when you think of phases like solid, liquid, gas. And so
Mm.
just having that definition is good for people to think about that necessarily don't necessarily have a material science background.
Mm.
And so we can think of taenite as a low iron phase and kamacite as a higher iron phase.
Yeah.
And so Say we have an asteroid, right? And we say we have 10% nickel in that asteroid, and we have 90% iron in that asteroid. And so say this asteroid went through a celestial impact and it's very hot. And so when it's very hot, everything is going to be taenite. That whole asteroid is going to be taenite. And so taenite, I said, is a low iron phase, but we have 10% iron in that asteroid. So even though we have a considerable amount of iron in the asteroid, because it's so hot, the lattice, the crystal lattice of the taenite has enough energy to accompany that iron. But as we begin to cool, that crystal lattice loses energy. And so it has less and less energy to accompany that iron. And that iron wants to get out. Remember, taenite is a low iron phase, but at high temperatures, it can accompany that iron. And so as we cool over millions and millions of years, that iron begins to precipitate out in a phase that is more accompanying to iron. That is kamacite. Kamacite is a higher iron phase. And so as we cool down, kamacite begins to precipitate to relieve the stress on the taenite. And because we're cooling so slowly, that kamacite, which are these rods, they can grow in preferential growth directions. When we cool very slowly, we get very nice facets of kamacite. We get a very pristine structure. And so they begin to grow in these very long rods in preferential growth directions. And that's why we see that these kamacite rods always intersect at very specific angles.
Yeah.
And so
it's not 90 degrees. Is it always the same angle?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact angles off the top of my head, but I mean, it looks like 60 and 120 thereabout.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we think about this more schematically, and I put up a phase diagram, let's see, there we go. This is a phase diagram of iron and nickel. And so here, this is pure iron, 0% nickel. Yeah. And all the way on the right, we have 50% nickel. And now this would extend all the way to 100% nickel, but we're not necessarily interested in that because our asteroid only has 10% nickel, remember? Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Our asteroid's very hot. Let's say we're all the way up here, about 870 C. You have 10% nickel. Like I said prior, we're all in taenite. Yeah. Despite taenite being a low iron phase, it can accompany the iron, because I think I may have said 10% iron prior. Should have meant 90%. But anyways, taenite is a lower iron phase, but despite having all that iron, it can accompany that because it's very hot. But say we cooled down over 50 million years. Oh, sorry. This is what that would look like. If we took a slice of that meteorite, this is what it would look like, right? Just one phase, homogeneous, all taenite. Yeah. But 50 million years later, let's cool down along this line. We're going to remain the same composition, 10% nickel. 50 million years later, we start to form kamacite. Yeah. Remember, because as we cool, there's less energy in the lattice for taenite to accompany all that iron. And so that iron will precipitate out as kamacite to relieve the stress on the taenite. Then we're cooling very slowly. 10 million years later, it's a little bigger. 10 million years later, it's a little bigger. And as more and more iron is precipitated out of the taenite, the kamacite grows and grows and grows very slowly until we get a nice Widmanstätten pattern. And so that's essentially, I mean, in a nutshell, how this stuff forms, right? Yeah. But what I was interested in is how I could make this at home. You know, we're told that this is, I mean, it is true. I'm not saying we're told as in like, this isn't the truth, but this does take many millions of years to form. Yeah. And so it's said that Widmanstätten only exists in asteroids that have undergone this geological timescale of very slow cooling. Yeah. But, you know, I wanted to try. I wanted to give it a shot to try to make it. And so I'm obviously not going to do this with iron and nickel because I don't have the facilities. Maybe one day, but
and this is also occurring in solid state. So this is
correct.
not, it's not a solidification pattern. It's a solid state transformation.
Correct. Yes. Solid state phase transformation. Taenite and kamacite are both solid phases, and
Yeah.
kamacite precipitates out from solid taenite. Yeah. And so but you do get some really cool microstructures upon solidification as well. And so not necessarily Widmanstätten, but if we have time, something I would like to discuss to talk about some nuances with phase diagrams. But yeah, I do find that also very incredibly interesting. To try to make this, it's actually incredibly approachable. So if we look at just copper-zinc phase diagram, we see something very familiar in this region. And so I want to focus on the beta phase and the alpha phase. And so the beta phase and the alpha phase, if we look in this region, we have a very similar looking pattern, right? We have beta, which is a solid phase, alpha, also a solid phase, and then we have an alpha-beta coexistence region between the two.
Yeah.
Now, beta is a high zinc phase, alpha is a low zinc phase. And so the thinking is we could have a process very similar to the formation of kamacite from taenite in this material system. We could instead have a formation of alpha from beta. So if we look at the iron-nickel phase diagram again, you see we have taenite. Then if we cool in a straight line down from taenite, we pass directly through a kamacite-taenite region. If we look at the copper-zinc phase diagram, we have a very similar story. If we cool down from beta, we can pass through an alpha-beta coexistence region.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's a very similar solid-state phase transformation in terms of just one phase to another.
Yeah.
So the thinking is, if I can cool from a melt, I can start with all beta. I could have a ingot full of solid beta, beta phase. And then if I cool further, that beta is no longer going to be able to accommodate all the copper, just like taenite wasn't able to accompany all the iron.
Yeah.
And so that copper will start to precipitate out as alpha as we move into the beta alpha coexistence region.
Yeah.
And if we cool slow enough, we may see some symmetry in the way that alpha forms. That alpha may grow in preferential growth directions, just like the kamacite rods that we see in Widmanstätten.
Yeah. Do you know what structures the beta and alpha phase have? Is it BCC, FCC? Is it hexagonal?
Oh, you're really testing me here. Beta phase has a body-centered cubic crystal structure, and alpha phase has a face-centered cubic crystal structure, at least if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, different crystal structures, as we see in our definition of a phase in material science. It's a phase that has a unique crystal structure and or stoichiometry. And so now let's look at what happens. So I'm going to take an ingot of, we'll say 40% zinc. I'm sorry, the zinc is sort of cut off here because I zoomed in, but this is atomic percent zinc, weight percent zinc. If I take 40% zinc, 60% copper, I heat it up, and we're a liquid, and then cool down, and then form an ingot that's entirely beta phase.
Yeah.
And so what's important here is that I want to spend a lot of time in the beta region. And I want to spend a lot of time in the beta region because I want relatively large beta grains. If I have small beta grains, because the alpha that forms is going to form within a beta grain, right? And so if I get preferential growth directions, those growth directions are going to be unique to the crystal the crystalline lattice direction of a grain. So from grain to grain, the direction of the alpha is going to change. And I get a better looking structure and also larger alpha if I have larger beta grains. So it's really important to get large beta grains. And at the time of making what you're about to see, I didn't have precise control of the temperature. I just had a furnace that I could cover with a bunch of insulation and hope it cools slow enough.
Yeah.
But I do have an electric furnace now, and I'm looking to try this again and really meander through the beta region and spend a lot of time there. So I'm guessing
thermocouples in the system, or are you just hoping?
Inside the furnace?
Yeah.
No thermocouples. I figure even if I did have thermocouples, there's nothing I could really do with it except just know what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole setup's pretty jank. But the new electric furnace is definitely on more scientific.
Yeah.
So so getting large beta grains, and then through our large beta grains start to precipitate alpha.
Yeah.
Which is the lower zinc phase. As the copper precipitates out of the beta, we get the alpha. And so let's see what that looks like. I mean, there it is, right?
Wow, yeah.
And so this is
the
like
black
already
is the beta. The black is the beta phase.
Yes, that's correct. And so the way I did this was have the ingot and then cut it, polish it up a bit, and give it an etch in ferric chloride. And so ferric chloride is going to preferentially etch the zinc-rich regions. And so that's the beta regions that you see, the darker regions.
Yeah.
And so it also etches alpha, but it etches alpha a lot slower.
Yeah.
And so the beta regions become depressed relative to the alpha, which is elevated. And so then what I can do is, after etching, I can take this back to the polishing wheel and I can give it a quick pass of 1200 grit. That's 1200 grit US. I know there's like a discrepancy in the grits among the world, but
I think it's the same. It's the number of particles per square inch on your paper.
Okay.
I think we use the same way of naming a sandpaper.
Okay. Well, that's good because I've seen multiple different scales of grit, and it's a little confusing at times. But I'm glad that at least us are on the same page. But point being, it's a very fine grit.
Yeah. But when we go polishing, we go to microns. Then we talk the grain size of the diamond particle. So it could be 3 micron or 1 micron you polish with.
Yeah. Not doing any diamond particles or colloidal silica at home, but just doing really fine sandpaper. And so I can take the etched surface and quickly pass over some very fine grit. And so I'm essentially then polishing the elevated regions and not polishing the depressed regions. In other words, I'm applying a quick polish to just the alpha to really make it pop.
Yeah.
And so that's what you see here. If we take a closer look at this with a macro lens, sorry, not a macro lens, just zoomed in with my phone camera.
Yeah.
It looks a little
with
cooler.
Your phone?
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is my fingernail. So
okay.
I mean, it is pretty small still. And so you can kind of see like this is probably a grain. This is probably a grain. This is a grain. And so you can see that these alpha plates all have a common symmetry within their own grain. And so like if we look from this grain to this grain, the directions that the alpha plates are going are different because the grain has a different crystalline lattice direction. It's shifted in some sense. And so the preferential growth directions macroscopically are relatively different.
Mm.
And so that's why large beta grains are important, because if we had small beta grains, one, these alpha plates would be very small. We wouldn't be able to see them.
Yeah.
And two, there'd be so much variation everywhere that we wouldn't be able to see that symmetry. So something that I really want to try with the electric furnace is growing these beta grains to be very large. And so we can see much longer alpha plates, as well as much more wide-scale symmetry. So if we zoom in on this more with a macro lens, there you go. You can really see that, I mean, for being told that Widmanstätten is unattainable on human timescales, this is pretty respectable, I think. I mean, it's not exactly Widmanstätten at all. For one, it's not the iron nickel material system. For two, you can see there's some like dendritic-like growth in some areas, rather than just purely being plates. But I mean, you have these elongated plates and a shared symmetry between them. And it is a solid state phase transformation, just like taenite to kamacite. Instead, it's alpha to beta. And so I think there's more similarities than differences between this structure and Widmanstätten than,
I fully agree.
Yeah. And so I thought this was really cool, honestly.
And did you also try with other materials than
I did.
iron, the copper-zinc?
Yeah. I did copper aluminum. And now that material, I wanted to show the most successful one first, right?
Yeah.
The copper aluminum also tried. That was my first shot, and it's a completely different phase transformation. It's actually phase transformation from the melt. And so I'll skip down here a bit and move this one further up and start here. So this is the copper aluminum phase diagram, and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of different phases, and so we can zoom in into one specific region, and that's right at the beginning, just this region right here. And so we have theta aluminum, and we have, I think it's still called alpha aluminum. It's been a while. When I say a while, I mean a few weeks. I've been doing a lot of different material systems, but I think it's still called alpha aluminum. I hope it is.
Unless, we will call it alpha here. Alpha and theta.
Yeah. So here we have something completely different. We don't have that solid to solid phase transformation like we necessarily saw before. We have, like, if I went through any of these compositions here, I would start in a liquid up here. I would go down into a liquid solid coexistence region, and then into a completely solid. But this solid is coexistence between alpha aluminum and theta aluminum. And theta aluminum is really interesting because it's a aluminum copper intermetallic compound. So it is a compound. It's not a solid solution of aluminum in copper like zinc is in brass. It's actually its own stoichiometric compound, and that is Al2Cu. And theta aluminum forms very the crystal habit of theta aluminum is very elongated plates or rods. And so I can illustrate this by, you'll have to forgive me with the compositions. I completely forgot the compositions I've used. If anyone's interested, you can watch a YouTube video, and I call them out there. But approximately 30% copper, 70% nickel, or excuse me, 30% copper, 70% aluminum. If I heat this up and to a melt, and then I cool down, I enter a theta liquid coexistence region. And in this coexistence region, I start to grow theta.
Yeah.
And theta is very long rods,
Mm.
like I
Yeah.
said. So
Mm.
our melt is full of these very long rods. And then as you cool any alloy, you have solidification, densification, right? Because uh, liquids have a larger volume than
Mm.
solids
Yeah.
generally. And
Mm.
so as the melt cools, the liquid pulls away from the surface.
Mm.
And so it's hard to illustrate this with just words. But if I were to have an intermetallic rod that formed on the surface up here,
Mm.
and then the liquid pulled away from that rod as it solidified, that rod would now be elevated, and you
Mm-hmm.
could see it as the
Yeah.
liquid receded from it.
Yeah. So it'll
And
be
so,
dry,
yeah,
even though
and
you
so,
are at the melting temperature. Yeah.
and that's what you see here.
Yeah.
And so these are all aluminum copper intermetallic rods.
Mm.
The level of the liquid was all the way at the surface of these rods, but
Mm.
as it cooled, the liquid receded as it
Yeah.
densified,
Mm.
and the rods remained as they had already solidified. And so that's really cool, I think. I mean, when I first saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so cool. I
Yeah.
mean, to see these huge metal crystals like actually crystalline rather than on a polished surface is
Yeah.
something that I haven't seen aside
Mm.
from like growing like copper crystals electrolytically or gallium crystals from the melt in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are really funky looking crystals. They're really cool.
Yeah.
But this got me thinking that on the inside of the melt, I mean, maybe we could get a Widmanstätten-like pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have you have these crystals, and then in between them, you can't see here, but in the solid, you're going to have a eutectic between the theta and the alpha.
Mm.
And so as we solidify and
Yeah.
we exhaust all the intermetallic stoichiometry, we move
Mm.
to a eutectic region
Yeah.
where uh, a coexistence between the alpha and the
Mm.
theta solidify
Yeah.
essentially like at the same time. And
Yes.
we get a eutectic region between the two.
Yeah. Mm.
And so what I wanted to try with this is doing a very slow cool of this compound at approximately 30% and see if I can get a Widmanstätten-like pattern. Because again, these really long rods are the hallmark of Widmanstätten.
Mm.
And so I tried that out, approximately 30%, cooled very slowly, especially slowly through this region,
Yeah.
remained slow.
Mm.
And let's see, this is what I got the first time. And this is actually etched.
Mm. A
The
lot of dendrites.
Yes, a lot of dendrites.
Uh,
And so this is a nuance with the phase diagram that I wanted to discuss,
mm.
is that I'll bring it up later. I'll emphasize it more in a bit, but you could be anywhere in this alpha theta coexistence region, and you can have drastically different microstructures.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
this is the phase diagram is very generic, and it says that this whole region is alpha theta coexistence. But this side compared
Mm.
to this side is going to have completely different properties,
Mm-hmm.
completely different microstructure.
Yep.
And even if I were to stay at 30% copper, if I were to change the heating profile, I'd have completely different microstructures.
Mm.
So the phase diagram is very generic, and there's a lot of nuances that you have to keep in mind when you're trying to interpret them
Mm-hmm.
for the use in your materials.
Yeah.
So this is approximately 30% aluminum, and like you said, a lot of dendrites here.
Mm.
I mean, we see there's a big old rod here, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of dendritic growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some ideas as to why this composition yielded more dendrites than others,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not fully fleshed out.
Okay.
And um, I think it may have something to do with the amount of constitutional supercooling that's occurring as the intermetallic solidifies, having more versus less aluminum getting kicked out of the
the
melt
liquid.
as
Yeah.
which can cause more or less stability in solidification. So if we were to have more less stability, we would be more likely to get dendrites. More stability, more likely to get these rods. And so this etching, complete tangent, but this etching actually took me quite a while to figure out. And I think it's a really cool way to etch, because this material was incredibly difficult to etch. I'll tell you. Usually you etch aluminum alloys with Keller's reagent, right? Having mixture of hydrofluoric, nitric, hydrochloric acid. Hydrofluoric is necessary to strip the oxide. Nitric passivates the aluminum, and hydrochloric selectively etches, pretty sure. I tried that etch on this alloy, and it didn't actually work very well. Didn't get very good phase contrast. And so this etch is actually anodizing. And it's anodized in a really untraditional electrolyte bath. It's actually anodized in a baking soda electrolyte. And so, yeah. And so I just uploaded a video on why I think this works. But to sum it up, I think the eutectic region is building an oxide layer, while the intermetallic region is precipitating aluminum hydroxide. And so the aluminum hydroxide is very white, and so it causes the intermetallic layer to pop, while the eutectic remains more dark because it just has the oxide layer on top of it. Yeah, and so I don't know if we'll have time to go through that whole mechanism, but I have a video if you want to check it out.
Yeah, let's take that.
Yeah. So this is one composition. This is a second composition. This is only like a 5% differential in copper.
Okay.
I think I moved to the left. So at first I had approximately 30, and then I had approximately 25% aluminum. Again, those aren't the exact numbers. They're in the video. I've forgotten by now. But you see, you're in the alpha theta coexistence region, but you have dramatically different microstructures.
Yeah, and almost no dendrites left.
Yeah, and so
and same cooling pattern.
Yep, same cooling. And so
the layer where you have the dry zone of the first formed theta dendrites, is that on the backside here? On your first one, you could see easily at top. That one,
I'm sorry.
Where you
yeah.
have.
I should have. Sorry. I should have prefaced that this is actually cooling, like a regular cooling. This is me pouring it into the ingot and letting it cool in air. So no special cooling was done to this.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's really impressive how big of crystals you get, just cooling regularly. But it turns out if you take a face of this and polish it, it doesn't look very impressive. It it looks very featureless, and so only the face actually has any features, which is interesting. And so, yeah, this moving more left on the phase diagram to get this structure, having less aluminum, sort of points me into the idea of less aluminum being rejected from the solidification, having less constitutional supercooling, and then a more stable growth front to be more for these rods to preferentially form rather than the dendrites.
Yeah.
And so with this, we see another sort of Widmanstätten looking structure, that crosshatched region. And now this, I think, is a lot less impressive than the alpha beta brass, but it's super cool in its own right. And this, I'm a little bit still on the fence as to what this actually is. It could be dendritic growth that just has
Mm.
really stable dendritic growth to grow in preferential growth planes. But it could also be something else. If you look at this closer, I unfortunately don't have a picture.
Mm.
Each of these like dots, I don't know how well the quality is on your
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, it is visible. You can see that it is like dendrites trying to grow out in the liquid.
Yeah.
So you have like if you look at the dendrite you had previously, it looks like a tree.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Uh, yeah, those and uh, the 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 core of the tree and then the branches, and on here you can easily see all the branches that they have
Yeah.
grown, and then on the top of each branch there is also initiation of some small knots, and I think those small knots you can see on your last picture there. You can see that it starts to grow on the side of it, grow out like that.
Yeah.
So it is a kind of dendritic structure.
Yeah. What had me, I'm actually going, just because we're talking about it, I'm going to bear with me for a minute or
Yeah.
so. This is, you'll have to excuse the polishing job because,
Yeah.
I'm doing this all by hand. I don't have a
Yeah.
polishing wheel at home. But this is that Widmanstätten-like pattern that we saw. And
Ah.
you can see that each of those regions
Mm.
is almost like their own crystal. It's like
Yeah.
this one is its own
Hmm.
crystal.
Yeah.
Here's its own crystal. Here's its
Mm.
own crystal. And then we see the eutectic in between, right? And this eutectic is pretty big,
Mm.
like just the size of the alpha and theta regions,
Yeah.
relative to something you would expect in more traditionally cooled materials is
Mm.
pretty big. But just seeing these individual facets led me to instilled some doubt in me that it might not just be dendritic. And what then gave me, okay,
Mm. It looks like is it called epitaxic when it grows based on something pre-existing?
yeah, yeah, that's a thought. There's Yeah, this is where the preface that I'm not an expert in the field comes in. And so I
Yeah.
have a good excuse to
Mm.
fall back on.
Yeah.
But yeah, each these rods,
Mm.
macroscopic looking rods, look to be individual crystals at some
Mm.
level. And
Yeah.
then those individual crystals, here's again a macro shot of something like this.
Hmm.
Those individual crystals are the same shape of what we see there. And
Ah.
so these rods are actually made
Mm.
up of all individual crystals that have a
Mm.
very similar shape. And you see it's like a diamond shape on
Yeah.
each of the crystals.
Yeah.
And you can see that
It's
here as
almost
well.
like needles.
Yeah, right, right. And so, and then of course here there are voids,
Mm.
but deep inside the material, this would be filled with eutectic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that leads me to believe that this may be just a face of
Mm.
one of these orthogonal to the growth direction.
Mm.
We might be seeing just some really symmetrical growth. And so that's an idea that I had just because uh, the facets of these needles really closely match the shape of uh, some of the individual crystals you see around here.
Yeah. It looks right. I think you are right.
Okay, well, it's
Mm.
good to hear that from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason, I know that people have tried or they have made jewelry in Widmanstätten materials, and a ring or an earring in material that is polished so you can really see the structure. is extremely high valued. But I also know that today it's almost impossible to get it because you have to let in if you find a meteor. At least here where I live, you're not allowed to keep it. You have to give it in for science reasons. But this could be the future way of making jewelry with these structures, and I know you have played around with it. Um, can you share a little of the story you tried to make?
Yes, sorry for looking. I was just adding the picture of the jewelry to the presentation now because
Yeah.
I hadn't had that added either.
No.
But yes, of course I can do that. So this first alloy, again, this was the first time I tried to replicate the pattern.
Yeah.
And this intermetallic compound, Al2Cu, is mechanically more akin to a ceramic than a metal. It's
Hmm.
extremely brittle and bad
Hmm.
for just about anything.
Yeah.
And so there'd be no jewelry making out of this because
Hmm.
it would probably shatter upon machining.
Mm.
Maybe if you're like really, really careful, you could make a very fragile piece of jewelry that I would like. I mean, I would like it just because something made out of this, I think would look really cool. I think this
Yeah,
is really beautiful.
it is.
But the brass was much more approachable in terms
Mm.
of machining.
Yeah.
And out of that, I actually did make a ring. And so this is dendritic brass, and
Hmm.
we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves. I haven't explained the dendrites yet, but this is the only ring I have made so far, and it is far too small for me because I made it to see if I could make it, not necessarily to wear it.
Hmm.
But yeah, the dendrites here are very large, and I really love this nucleation point of dendrites that spiral out in sort of
Yeah.
a galaxy-like look, which I
Hmm.
think is just super cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this ring, I mean, it is brass, so um, it would turn your skin green. So you would have to apply some sort of clear coat or varnish on it if you actually wanted to wear it
Yeah.
uh, for any long period of time.
Hmm.
But I'm sure any metallurgist would really like a ring like this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be protected maybe by some thin PVD coating that is invisible but very wear resistant.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
Um,
Jason, now you have made this ring and might not be able to wear it, but what is next step? What will you do tomorrow when you have your new furnace?
well, it depends. Maybe I might upgrade the PID on it because it's not a programmable furnace. It's a cheap, non-programmable furnace.
Hmm.
So that's definitely on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Or maybe if I decide to just manually change the temperature and cooling rate, um, I will try to redo the material systems that I've already explored and see if I
Hmm.
can get different structures.
Yeah,
And then,
or
of
even
course,
larger.
yeah.
Mm.
And then, of course, even new material systems. I mean, there's so many out there. I
Mm.
mean, if I did one every day, I still wouldn't have scratched the surface by the time I'm 100 years old. So there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
And even on just one phase diagram, I mean, you saw
Mm.
the uh, go all the way back. You saw the copper aluminum phase diagram.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot going on. And
Yeah.
so just to not even just trying to get Widmanstätten like patterns, but getting beautiful microstructures like this
Mm.
is something that's really interesting to me and passionate about. Um, so just exploring phase diagrams to try to bring out these structures and metals either upon solidification or solid state phase transformations, is something that I think I'll be doing for a long time. So if anyone also finds that interesting, I'll be consistently uploading that to the YouTube channel, which is ElectronImpressions.
Yeah, I will put a note on that so people can find it because I was inspired by your YouTube channel, and I will encourage other people to watch it as well.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
So, Jason, thank you very much for introducing us to your pattern. Your passion is really appreciated, and I envy your employer who is taking you in, because you are one of those guys that I would love to collaborate with. I hope this is not the last time I meet you.
All right, yeah. Maybe I can top this one by an order of magnitude and come back and talk about it more.
That would be great. So, thank you very much for sharing your information.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Yeah, see you.
All right, bye-bye.